Hello. Today I will be presenting the PreP literacy strategy. And it basically is a vocabulary strategy that is designed to help students kind of brainstorm before reading anything, really. It really helps with that. So let's just dive right into it. Yeah, so here's a little bit of background information as we're talking about the lesson. Let's move this over here. So, my content area is music in an ensemble, which that would be, secondary, middle school through high school. But, the grade level that we're particularly talking about is 9 through 12. That would be the optimal, setting for this lesson. It can be any of those grades, really. Um, and then the lesson topic that we're talking about is the aspects of sight reading, right? So essentially, we're going to be reading an article about the aspects of sight reading, and I'll explain what this literacy um, strategy entails here in a minute. But it has to do with the state standard of basically music theory, because it kind of has to do with music theory. Demonstrate how interests, knowledge, and skills relate to personal choices and intent when creating, performing, and responding to music. So it fits well within that. Um, and this is just a really good lesson in general for just helping students, kind of familiarize, sorry, I can't talk, themselves with sight reading, because it's a very important skill to have in the music field and just in general. It helps them, honestly, it helps them read faster too. It helps them read sheet music faster. It helps with those skills, but like kind of just analyzing things, so it kind of like traces over to reading a little bit. But yeah, so here's sort of my rationale and explanation of what this literacy strategy is, right? So the PreP procedure essentially is a three-phase literacy strategy designed by a guy named Langer, and it essentially requires students to brainstorm the content before reading the assigned reading. Okay, and there's three phases to it. Phases, not phrases. Sorry. The first phase is connections. The second phase has to do with reflections, and the third phase, reformulations. And going through these three phases, the student will formulate assessed preconceived knowledge about the topic. Their comprehended thoughts will guide them through the reading, and then after reading the material, the student will compare their previous knowledge with their new knowledge. So yeah, let me just explain a little bit about what each phase entails. So usually, for the materials in this sort of lesson, you will want a whiteboard, because the big bulk of this interactive literacy activity is actually before the reading, right? There's kind of a reflection thing that I add in after the lesson, because it really helps with assessment and checking for that kind of stuff. But it's really just a three-phase thing before the reading, right? It kind of builds and scaffolds off of one another. That first phase is connections, which essentially the student thinks of vocabulary words, right? Because that's what this is about, vocabulary. Vocabulary words that pertains to the actual reading, right? What they can already think about it. So for example, as you will see in my lesson that I will show you, we're talking about sight reading. So I ask my student, what is sight reading, or what does that mean to you? And then he gives me a list of words and phrases and whatnot that has to do with it. And I leave it at that. I don't even say anything until I have asked him completely what those are. And then essentially, after writing those down, I'll kind of reflect off of those, like, oh, that's a good choice, kind of encourage that, especially if you have multiple students, get them fun. But phase two, reflections. So I basically just asked them right off the bat from that, what made you pick those specific terms and vocabulary? I asked them their rationale for picking those things. What made you relate this specific term to what we're going to read about? Like, what do you know about it? I asked them for a little bit of background knowledge, baby. Um, just really pick their brain for it. Uh, and we kind of just discuss a little bit, about what their choices are, and I'll, talk about it a little bit. And then the third and final phrase before we actually, get to the actual reading are reformulation. So essentially, after kind of talking to them and having them think about and reflect why they picked those things, they really, kind of add in any extra thoughts, right? So after the whole class listens to the teacher kind of, uh, pick everyone's brains about, why they picked what they picked, they might have some additional, like, I don't know, questions, and just things that formulate in their mind. And so reformulation, I'll add extra words to the board if needed, just kind of extra things that we want to think about before reading. Because this whole phase, or all of this that we're doing, is the bulk of the activity. Like it prepares them for reading, but it really kind of, prepares them, it prepares them for the reading, right? And so they think about what vocabulary they need to look out for and what, to think about. And it helps me assess their knowledge a little bit. And, and in the phase after the reading, as I will explain later, um, it's very good for assessment. But a little bit more further on, we are reading an article about the aspects and importance of sight reading. So before reading, I will implement this strategy by getting the students to think about specific words and phrases that apply to this concept. The student will benefit from this literacy strategy by having them improve their critical thinking skills as they search for background knowledge to come up with ideas. As I said, this is a good assessment tool for teachers. Okay, and now you will be going to the YouTube video. Put you over there. Let's watch it together. All right. Hello, class. I see that we are a little short of number today. That's fine, okay? So today, we're going to be doing a little reading strategy, okay? So just go along with me. So now, in relation to what we usually do in ensemble class, right? Can you tell me what first comes to mind, just a couple of words or phrases that come to mind when I tell you about sight reading, okay? Write that down. Just one moment. Today the whiteboard isn't working, so we're using airplane. Okay, Mr. Weir. Tempo, interesting.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay. That's a good start to it. You give me another one?
Yeah, key signature.
Key signature, okay. Very solid aspects of music. Can you give me a couple more?
Articulation.
Articulation. You can see the board just fine, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Just one more.
Accidentals.
Accidentals, that's good. Normally students would say flats and sharps, but you went the extra mile. Okay, yeah. So what we have here are a lot of elements of music, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we're talking about sight reading. Now, how would these relate to sight reading and what you need to think about when thinking about sight reading? Can you explain why he chose these words?
Oh, yeah. So these are all words that make music as key component. So tempo is how fast or slow it is. The key signature is what notes you're going to play. The articulation is how you're going to play those notes. And those accidentals are those notes outside of the key that you need to be aware of.
Okay, very good. So you're describing the very specific details of each vocab word and phrase.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Yes, those are all very important when thinking about sight reading, because sight reading is very hard. It's reading a piece of music that you've never seen before, and you have to think about all these little things when you actually sight read, right?
Yes.
So the best way to tackle that is to think about each single one when you do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think about these different words and phrases, these vocab words. They are very important.
right? And so, yes, it is important to think about tempo and key signatures, right? Mark down the different key signatures throughout the sight reading. That in articulation, how am I going to play this note long or short? Accidentals, playing the actual pitches and stuff, right? And you can just keep on going on thinking about the different elements of music, right? As a matter of fact, after kind of talking about it a little bit, you think you would add any more ideas when it comes to sight reading?
Time signature, probably.
Sight signature, right along with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other ideas that we don't necessarily need to write down?
I don't know. Can't really think of anything else right now.
Right, because, we're going to read about it in the article. And it's the next step of this little activity, right? And then we're going to kind of reflect. So now you're going into this article kind of thinking about what you're going to read. What do you think this reading is actually going to be about?
I think this reading is going to be about sight reading and like tips and tricks about how to sight read, but also like maybe how it might make you a better musician.
Okay, very good analysis. Yep. Just definitely think about these vocab words when you read, and I think it'll turn out really well. Okay. Now, as you can see, this is the actual whiteboard that we used. And we have the article right here. See you in a moment. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll show the article right after the video. But yeah, now is the after phase of after reading the article. I basically kind of assess the student's knowledge, right? And kind of ask them about how their words are related, the vocab words related to what they read, and anything additional that they learned.
Okay, we've read the article now. What are your thoughts? Any additional words we can add to this, or just, what do you think about the article?
I thought it was pretty good. I thought it gave me some good insight as onto sight reading and how it works and what are the benefits of it. For instance, oral or oral skills. It helps with being able to hear notes and intervals, and if you can sight read those notes and intervals, you can sing the song in your head before you even play it, so you know what's going to happen when you play it. So you're not going into it totally blind. So that's really cool. And sight reading can also, it can make playing music more fun. Because the article states that doing warm-ups and routine drills can often become monotonous. But if you can pull out any piece and just play it or sing it, it can be more fun because you're able to just do so without trying or without getting frustrated.
And that would be consistency, wouldn't it? Yeah. So yeah, audiation, consistency. I added those to the board as vocab words. Do you feel like you were pretty prepared for the article and understood it very well?
I did. I thought it was a very nice introduction, and I felt like I got the article very well.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so that's the video. And as you can see here, this is the article that he read. The benefits of sight reading, the what, why, and how, right? And it kind of goes a lot into what we already discussed about why sight reading is important, the different aspects. And as you will be able to see, he really, got some of those things like, rhythm and pitch. We'd already talked about that during the lesson. So, some of those vocab key terms are mentioned throughout here. So he made some pretty good predictions and whatnot. And after reading, talked about audiation. That's in there. And then, very good analysis of the article. And I would say that this literacy strategy was a success from that. Let me go back to where we are. And so, yeah, the literacy strategy was implemented and done well. And that focus on the vocab equals success in reading comprehension. So I know, especially for me, right? Whenever I think about specific vocab words, they just really kind of hone in on what the focus of the article is. You know, if you have a true understanding of what they are. And the best way to practice this strategy, it's really easy to apply. Just pull out vocab words from any specific reading, right? Move this a little bit. And discuss them, right? Ask them why they picked those words, add additional words, you know, spend a lot of time on that. That's very important. And then read the passage, have them read the passage however you might see fit, and then reflect from it if you deem necessary. Okay, and now assessment evaluation. So yeah, as I've said, this is a very great tool for assessment. It assesses concept knowledge. So, the very specific concept that you're trying to talk about, when you're just asking them what words you know, or what they know, sorry, you're assessing whether or not they know the words and actually understand the words. You're asking them why they picked those words. You're not just asking them to list words that they heard. They're going to preface on them. And then also it assesses reading comprehension. You can really assess that in the final phase of everything, reflecting off of that stuff, off of the article, and seeing what new things they learned and how they connected it. So it's good for reading comprehension assessment. And I'd say, this is really good for a solo assignment, especially in my content area. I just personally can't really see any really good uses in a bigger project, I suppose, or bigger assignment. This is a pretty good standalone assignment in whatever concept we're talking about, but you can get pretty creative with it, I think, and how that before section, before you read the article. And yeah, it can be considered effective if the student provides a good explanation and understanding of reading. So that's how you'll assess it, right? That conversation after the article is just as important as, the beginning ones, all of that. Seeing how their knowledge of the subject matter has grown, did it stay the same, or are they more confused? That's how you will know if, this literacy strategy was utilized effectively. And lastly, especially like for the last part, a way that you could do this, and maybe even at the beginning, depending on what materials you have, worksheets could be good for assessment. Writing down what they know and have learned, sort of like a TWL chart. You could use that. That could go hand in hand with this assignment, because discussion is a big part of this, and it's teacher led, but it's with discussion. And I guess something I kind of forgot to mention, but is very minuscule, just for the materials, like I said, the whiteboard, and then however you might want to pass out the readings. I had Jacob read it on a laptop, but passed out in paper form. That's really all there is to it. But yeah, that's my presentation. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned a little bit more about this literacy strategy, the PreP literacy strategy. Thank you.